All right, so how's it going, guys? In this video, I'm going to go over how to install a virtual machine using Windows Hypervisor Manager. It's not actually very straightforward because of the support for the video drivers on Windows. We'll go over that while we're installing it. But essentially, make sure that you have your Hyper your Hyper-V settings enabled in the BIOS. You can get to your BIOS by restarting the computer, hitting delete or F12. There's usually a shortcut to get into the BIOS, and that's usually under the peripherals section. Once you go there, you'll see specific options for enabling hypervisor support. And once you have that on, then you'll be able to come into Windows and go to Features. Just gonna go over this again real quick here. Go into Windows, Windows Features, and turn on the Hyper-V management tools and the Hyper-V platform here. And scroll down here and turn on Windows Hypervisor platform. And once you have those features turned on, you have to restart the computer, and you'll be able to come into Windows and type in Hyper-V or just Hyper, and Hyper-V Manager will show up. And that's pretty much what this is right here. And from there, we'll be able to install our distribution essentially. So for now, let's go ahead, and we're gonna today I'm gonna be installing Ubuntu. So I'm gonna get my Ubuntu download here. Come to ubuntu.com and download Ubuntu desktop. And we're gonna be going over the 2004.1 long-term support distribution, or not distribution, but installation essentially. So once you've downloaded that, we'll go ahead and get into actually creating the virtual machine. So from there, you go to New. We'll say Virtual Machine. I'm going to call it Ubuntu. And I actually have this downloaded in a different location. So let me go ahead and go to that. And I'm going to come here and point to the Ubuntu folder that I have set up here. Go ahead and select that folder. Hit Next. And for now, we're going to stick with Generation 1. Go ahead and let's give it 8 gigs of memory. We're going to use dynamic memory as well for this virtual machine. I mean, it doesn't really make sense for us to reserve the entire 8 gigs if we're not going to actually need it. We'll let it build up to 8 gigs if it does actually need it. That'd be the better option. It'll actually create a default switch for you when you first launch Hypervisor Manager, so we'll just stick with that one for now. That's just basically a virtual network adapter essentially, so that it can connect to the internet. And here we're basically just going to go with the default settings here. You can modify the size of your hard disk if you want to have a different one. I'm going to stick with the 127. That's fine by me. And can't really modify this. They only support VHDX. This is actually kind of similar to QCOW2. It's a dynamically expanding hard disk, so it won't actually pre-allocate the 127 gigabytes here, so you don't have to worry about that taking up all your space immediately. It's just going to take up whatever it needs once it actually does the installation. Hit Next. We know we already have the ISO downloaded, so let's go ahead and pick the ISO. Right, so let's see here. Ubuntu. I have the Ubuntu downloaded, the ISO downloaded, so selecting that and hit Finish. So that created the virtual hard disk for us, and we are ready to go off to the races pretty much. So from here, we're just going to right click our virtual machine and hit connect. And this is going to say, oh, it's turned off. Let's go ahead and start that. And here's where things are going to get a little bit hairy because, like I said earlier, the The graphics driver support for Windows is not really there yet. Insufficient RAM, eh? Interesting. Let's find out what's being used. Yikes. Okay. What can we free up in the memory here? Yeah, it's probably because of RTX voice. I switched to that. The previous recording had my voice going all over the place, so I switched to using RTX voice for filtering out the noise. It should play a lot better, but that actually limits how much memory I'm going to have to play with here. So actually what we'll do is we'll modify the memory so that we can actually get it running. Go to settings, go down to memory. Oh, one other thing that we do need to make sure is that, well, this won't be an issue actually. This will only be an issue if you're trying to do UEFI. Keep this in mind if you're doing UEFI, but make sure you go to security and turn off the option here in the security. I believe it's called secure boot. Make sure that it's turned off, otherwise your hard disk won't load at all. But yeah, let me adjust that memory real quick here since we don't have enough. Let's give it how about, we should at least have 4 gigs, I would believe. Yeah, let's give it 4 gigs. I mean, roughly 4 gigs. It doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to get this up and running. Let's see here. So with 4 gigs, let's go ahead and start it up. Yeah, it's fine. Revert doesn't really matter. We didn't actually do anything just yet. Okay, so actually this is very interesting. So the video drivers for Ubuntu out of the box already work with Windows. It actually makes sense because they have support for Linux subsystem in Windows, and the main operating system actually is Ubuntu. So it makes sense that they support Ubuntu first with graphics drivers. So we won't have to actually go over that. I'll actually will go over that a little bit. If you're trying to install a different distribution, like something like Arch or Manjaro or something like that, then you're gonna have to do it a little bit differently because the default graphics drivers for that aren't there. The support for the default graphics drivers for that aren't there. So I'll go over how to actually get around that and get your installation up and running. But for Ubuntu, they just support it out of the box, which is very nice. So again, installation for Ubuntu is very straightforward. In fact, what we're going to do is we're just going to install the out of the box installation setup instead of doing the special one that I usually do. We're just going to say minimal. We don't need Office and games and stuff like that, media player, all that mess. You can download the updates while installing. This will update like the kernel or any libraries that have already been run out of date since they released the specific version of Ubuntu that we're using. You can install third-party stuff too. I haven't played around with this just yet. Like this would probably be support if you're trying to actually do a GPU pass-through or something like that. If you wanted to do that, you would have to install third-party software for your graphics, obviously. So if you're using like a NVIDIA card or AMD card, then you can actually have it install the AMD specific or the NVIDIA specific graphics drivers. Out of the box, it's just going to use open source drivers. Same thing with Wi-Fi. If you have if you want to use direct Wi-Fi or direct NIC access with your Wi-Fi card, you can set that up as well. But we're just going to go with the basic setup here. So don't really, like I said, I'm going to not do my custom GPT setup this time around. I'm going to go ahead and let it just do the basic standard installation that it normally does. And we'll go ahead and let this go on. So what this is going to do with their basic standard setup, they're only going to have 2 partitions. This is going to be essentially your boot partition that they're going to set up. That's why you don't see a specific format here. It's going to be an unformatted partition. And then you're going to have everything else essentially on your root partition. So this will probably be somewhere along the lines of like 100 megs or 200 megs, something along those lines. We'll take a look once this is finished to see what it actually did for space setup. But for now, let's go ahead and let this continue. Alright, time zone setup. Let's go ahead and call this tester. Tester virtual machine. We'll call it tester Ubuntu. Give it a password. And I don't like login automatically. If you step away from your computer, then anybody can just access your virtual machine. Or if someone penetrates your network, then essentially, since it's a tap network, if you're using a tap network, then it's like a NAT, so you're transferring your data between your host and yourself, which means you can put in a network sniffer and be able to see what's going between your virtual machine and your host. So you can actually see any data that's coming between the two, and anybody would be able to do some malicious and have malicious do something malicious with that data essentially. I always recommend requiring your password to log in. And we're gonna let this install, and we will come back and get into it once it's done installing here. See how fast it is or slow. We'll see how it goes though, essentially. Alright, and the installation is done. Let's see if the restart actually works. Usually it doesn't work when it comes to virtual machines. Let's see. It might actually work here with Ubuntu, since they've added already a lot of support for Ubuntu here. Yeah, it looks like it's working. We don't have to restart the VM. Or rather, we don't have to restart the virtual machine wrapper, I should say. And once this loads up, we'll take a look at how exactly the partitions were set up, just to see, just for curiosity's sake. Okay, very laggy here. Good grief. Oh, wait a minute, did we? Yeah, it bypassed the ISO already. That's why we're having to log in here. Laggy in general here. You'd probably be better off using the Linux subsystem, honestly. If it's going to be this bad. Let's see if it supports No, it does not. It does not support making the window bigger automatically. No worries. What we can do, let's skip all this. We don't want to connect any accounts or anything like that. Blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Send the information. That's fine. No turning on of that. Anyway, yeah, let's do one thing though. Let's check the installation setup just to see how they did it exactly. I'm kind of curious. Okay, go ahead and get into super user. That failed somehow. Let's try that again. Oh, you know what? The admin password. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to do it this way. Well, you don't need parted for. You don't need the SU for parted anyway. But let's see. Print. Okay, so they actually made the boot partition 537 megs. Good grief. And it ended up actually being a FAT32. Give it the boot flag. And they made the other partition that I set up is a ext4 file system, a logical extended partition. That's so that it can do the resizing, I would imagine. But it's fairly straightforward. They don't have BIOS grub on here or anything like that. It's not really necessary, I guess, since we don't need grub. We're just kind of launching into this. In fact, they probably just set up a master boot record. Let's see, updated software, blah, 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 whatever, cares. Yeah, this is very poor, honestly, for performance. If we try to watch a video, I'm sure it's going to be very choppy. Let's take a look. Let's see, YouTube. Got an advertisement right off the bat. You can tell audio is not coming through the virtual machine. So, I wonder if there's a way to set that up. We'll do some digging real quick here, actually. And the video's choppy as well. I mean, you pretty much expected it with how choppy the mouse movement is. Video itself is very choppy as well. Stuttering with the video buffering and everything as well too here. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Alright, so I'm stopping the video here. I ended up doing some digging to see if we can get a better experience with the Hyper-V manager here. And I ended up finding that we can do essentially an XRDP session, or an enhanced session using XRDP, I should say. So the next part of the video is going to go over how we can achieve that. And yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, so there actually is a way to make this run a lot better. The way you can do that is by setting up XRDP so that we can get an enhanced session here in Windows Hyper-V Manager. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt to do, and luckily there's actually a person named Kevin Trent who wrote a nice script. So it's not YouTube here. He wrote a nice script to pretty much do it all for you. So let's see here. You pretty much just have to search for Windows Hyper-V Pulseaudio. And it should be the first thing in the search. Yeah, this one right here. Tech blogging full. So you click this and you come down here and you click the updated version here. He has a link for that. I'll send you here because, man, we need to get out of this horrible laggy mess. And we need to pull in his script. Let's see. So pull this in by doing a wget. So I'm going to go ahead and open up terminal. Let's go to the downloads folder and go ahead and paste that. And go ahead and set up the password for a root user. And go to SU so that we're root user. And now that we're here, we need to run the install script. Oh, you know what? Actually, first we need to run chmod a plus x on the install script, and then we can run it. All right, this is going to run for quite a while. I think it's going to take roughly 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, but I will catch you guys once it's complete. All right, so the script is finished installing. We'll go ahead and shut this down. Power that off. And the next thing we need to do is actually make it so that the virtual machine can use the VSOC transport type for the enhanced session. So once this thing has actually shut down, we'll go ahead and run that command in PowerShell. So now we just need to run PowerShell in administrator mode. And we just need to call set VM name. I named mine Ubuntu, so just put whatever name you put right over here. And enhanced session transport type HV socket. That should do it. Let's do a connect. And now we should have enhanced session support. Let's see. If the install script worked correctly, then we should have our enhanced session here. Go to terminal. Script says to run it one more time, so I'm going to run it one more time just to be safe. Then I go to downloads and run install. You know what? It was doing the full system update first. That's what the initial part of the script was doing, essentially. So first time running it doesn't actually do what we need it to do. This time that we're running it now, though, it will actually set up XRDP properly. So once this completes, we should have a XRDP set up. Stopped XRDP. There we go. So now we have enhanced session. So if I do that, that's what this window is right here. So it's basically popping up an XRDP enhanced session for me if I hit connect. Now we can log in as our user. And we should be good to go. Actually, we may have to restart it one more time. Just because the regular session, the XRDP needs to we need to reboot essentially for all this to work properly. So let's go back to our basic session here and get out of here. Go ahead and shut this down. I'm going to actually other users, whatever, who cares. Go ahead and close that completely. I turned it off. Let's go ahead and connect again and get our XRDP session going. Let's see here. Yep. So there's our XRDP session. I'm gonna go ahead and connect. Tester. And hey, we're in. Man, this is smooth, man. This is night and day smooth. I don't know why they don't just like run this in their quick create installation for you. It would have been very nice to have this out of the box. But anyway, let's see. Let's see how the video goes. I saved the tutorial. So actually, we're gonna do a one-to-one test here, right? So we need to actually. There's still some pieces missing here, so we need to do some more installing here. Let's get libpulse dev autocomp m4 international tool build essential epkg dev libtool libsnd file dev libspeed xdsp dev and libudev. Go ahead and install all that stuff. Unable to locate package libspeed xdsp. Oh, not libspeed, libspeed. There we go. Where and updates, yeah. This. Allow source code. Again, we're just again. Close it. It's a big mess, definitely. don't. Okay, so we're gonna have to manually build it ourselves, unfortunately. Let's see. I think we have to su. Let's go ahead and su. So we're putting in sudo. All right, so we'll copy the apt sources list to make a basically we're gonna make a backup real quick of our sources list, and now we're going to let's see that dep source. Right. Need to put a slash in front of it. And let's do an update. So now we have access to the raw sources for Ubuntu. We can actually pull in Pulseaudio and should be able to build it ourselves to actually make use of Pulseaudio for XRDP. And we're already, what am I talking about? I have to build dep Pulseaudio. Let's just do all this building in temp. Alright, so apt source Pulseaudio, pull that in here. Right, so we have that. So now we need to say the server sever Pulseaudio version. Let's go ahead and print that out. And we're going to go ahead and cd into that directory. Where's it at? We just made Pulseaudio, right? So all right, cool. So that's the latest version. Configure it. And then we need to essentially download the XRDP module from the Pulseaudio Git folder. Let me see, let me see. Let me take a look at that real quick here. XRDP. All right, so this is what we need. So now we need to pull this. Go ahead and copy that. And go back to terminal here and clone it. And then we need to cd into that. And bootstrap it real quick. Once we bootstrap it, we can run the configuration again and point it to the correct directory after that. Let's see, so configure pulse directory is tmp, well, let's just put the absolute path here. It's audio, pulse sever. I keep saying server. Right, so now we can actually build the whole thing. Let's make it. I don't know why I put sudo. It's habit. All right, so we've made that. Let's go ahead and go into source and then cd into .lib folder. We can finally install it. So install t bar lib xrdp Pulseaudio installer -d m644 for the permissions and everything.so. And that should do it. let's find out. We need to go ahead and exit out of here. We're finally done with everything. Let's go ahead and shut this down. I have to actually put in a password for this. It's ridiculous. Head and terminal. Not sure why this is not doing itself. Let's go ahead and just go ahead and start it. Pulseaudio. You know what? That's fine. We can make it automatically start on startup for us. Pretty simple. If we really wanted to do that, but we'll go ahead and run it. And let's see, do a test here. Oh, looks like it has a bug. Hold on a second here. Was that because of... What's the problem with that? Let's go back into settings here. Okay, we have that. Test.
Front, left.
Yeah, there we go. Finally, audio is coming through. So now we have an equivalent setup for QEMU. But man, the manual setup took a long time. So let's go ahead and test out the video. It's extremely smooth, actually. Go to YouTube. Again, free videos from YouTube. Creative Commons. All right, we now have our audio. Actually, it's only coming out of one ear. Hold up. At least for me, anyway. Let's see here.
Congestion, fever, overall discomfort, and lots of coughing? Feel better soon with XL3 Extra. 4 powerful active ingredients to alleviate your cold and flu symptoms. XL3 Extra. Extra effective, extra fast, extra relief.
Well, we have some sort of audio at least. It's only playing out of one channel, unfortunately. It's mono. But we have audio. Video, on the other hand, is still very buffery. Is there no audio for these videos? Looks like there's completely no audio for these videos. But, as you can see, the video is no longer choppy, and we are finally at an equivalent stage for the QEMU setup. It's not bad, though, I would say. It's pretty responsive. About as responsive as QEMU. No issues here. Cancel that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and cut the video there. It's pretty long already as it is, so, you know, I was going to put in the whole showing you how to set up the Arch-based OS where there's, you know, little to no support for the video drivers out of the box. But it's already, you know, going over 30 minutes here, so I don't want to keep going with this video. I might do another video on that one, actually. Look out for that in the future, potentially. But we achieved what we wanted to achieve, so, you know, we got the experience pretty one-to-one for how it was with Quick Emulator. But as you can see, it was a long process and not very smooth. Ran into a lot of issues here and there trying to just figure it out. So, you know, all in all, kind of a experience with using Hyper-V Manager for Windows. Hopefully in the future they'll, you know, have come around and made it a lot better. But for now, it's pretty bare bones still. It's kind of like the early days of VirtualBox. But anyway, guys, you know, have a good one, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks. I'll catch you guys later.